Hi guys, it's me, I'm the Frugal Chef. I hope you're doing really well today. If you haven't subbed, I'd really appreciate it if you did. And I really thank you for that. Thanks for your support. It means a lot to me. Today, I want to discuss pros and cons of wet brining versus dry brining. This year, I dry brined a turkey for you guys. I actually did two. I'll explain in the dry brine why I ended up doing two. You know, the results are absolutely great. You might recall that earlier this year I dry brined some chickens for you. Some of you that tried them have told me that hands down, best chicken you've ever cooked. Agreed. It is amazing how that process works to have a final amazing result with your chicken. Anyway, and your turkey now. So I think what we'll do is we'll start with talking how these work. A wet brine is a solution of liquid, generally water. Sometimes you can use beer or wine, and the most important part of that whole thing is the salt. So typically it's about 35% salt. You put in kosher salt, and then whole salt. Then you put sometimes sugar, lots of times sugar, peppercorns, all kinds of things. You dissolve all that, cool down the liquid, and then put the turkey in, and off it goes, either to the refrigerator or the cooler or whatever method you're using to keep it cool. The deal is, number one, you are going to need a lot of room for this, okay? And so if you're busy, you have guests over, you really don't want to be taking so much room in your refrigerator. So that's kind of a big con of dry brining. Number two, if you're doing it in a cooler or garbage bags, since you have to have it on ice, you have to constantly be vigilant that that ice did not melt, and replace it, okay, so that your bird doesn't go bad before you cook it and you kill everybody in your house. The killer bird. So with the wet brine, what happens is that water is going to start penetrating the skin and the meat of that turkey. But the salt, which is again the most important part of that brine, is going to start loosening, and it loosens up the protein in the muscle. So the water can seep through that muscle, and it comes to a point where it's nice and plumped up because it's full of water. The salt will prevent that water from evaporating when you cook it. It won't just evaporate and it's still dry. It's that salt that matters there because of what it does to the protein. So that's how the wet brine works. With the dry brine, you're using a dry salt. It can be pure salt, it can be a salt combined with all kinds of different things, whatever you want. But what you're doing is you're rubbing that turkey really well with the salt. Initially, that salt's drying all up the moisture from the bird, up through osmosis. It all goes up to the surface, but the salt starts doing the same thing. It starts relaxing the protein in the muscle, and that salt starts coming in back into the meat without the fluid, which is kind of nice. Not only that, it'll go all the way down to the bone, so every single piece of meat that you eat from that turkey is going to have very good flavor. So I'd have to say that I think I'm going to stray away from wet brining from now on. I just love how the dry brining works. Okay, now pros and cons. Biggest con with the with the wet brine is space, as we discussed. Big space in your refrigerator. Cooler, bags, whatever. Again, you have to keep that super cold, so you have to be replenishing the ice if it's in a cooler and a bag. It can get messy. Number one. Number two, if you do it for too long, you're going to have a rubbery meat that is over pumped up with liquid, and what's going to happen is once you cook it, it's going to be beautiful, whatever, you're going to start cutting it, and that liquid is actually going to be coming out of the breast, or the meat of that bird. So you have to be careful not to brine it too much. Some people, say you got to brine it up to 2 days according to the size of your turkey. I have found that 24 hours is it. which by the way would be the pro for wet brining. 24 hours, you're done. You can, take it out and cook it. Okay, now with the dry brine, pros, as I discussed, the fact that that meat doesn't have the excess liquid and is very flavorful. Number one pro for me. Number two, you don't need the space because, like I'll show you in the dry brine video, you prepare the bird and then it goes into a little space in your refrigerator, which is awesome. Con with the dry brine, you need time. Okay, it needs a good 3 days. So if you're going to be defrosting your bird, thawing it in the fridge for 3 days, then you got to brine it for 3 days. You need to plan. You really need to plan ahead. I have read that you can actually brine a frozen turkey. I haven't done it. I don't know, so I'm not going to talk about that. But if you've done it, maybe you can tell us. And according to what I've read, you can actually do the same process and it'll thaw while it brines, which would be absolutely cool because it reduces your time, your prepping time by 3 days. So whatever you decide to do, you need to buy a turkey that has not been prepared with a solution already. Sometimes you get these turkeys that have already been injected so that they're nice and moist. It's great. But if you brine that turkey, it's overkill. You're gonna have a super salty bird, super rubbery meat if you're doing the wet. So be careful. Be careful to see that you're buying a turkey that is only turkey. Check the label. If it says salt, sugar, this, that, that's not what you want if you're going to brine. Okay, now I will see you in the next video where I am dry brining a turkey for you. See you soon.